I serve a lot of different hats. In many cases, I'm both a consultant as well as a president pro tem of a specific nutritional ingredients company. As a consultant, I have done things such as innovate different processes, and as far as doing that, an extraction process, for example. And in doing so, I would be responsible for the entire management of supply chain, including the everything from the seed to the actual agronomy, to the washing, delivery, etc., to the site, the method, selection of the method of how we will process them, the materials, and then in terms of looking forward towards what needs to be done to the ingredient to prepare it for sending on to an actual food manufacturer who would integrate that ingredient. So I've seen the entire scope of all that, as well as been impacted by when you do processing, of course, you're bringing in other raw ingredients from people who you may not be doing the growing, you may just be doing purchasing. So it's an understanding of that supply chain as well. With one of the current companies from which I'm doing a process innovation, it's an enzymatic extraction. So we are responsible for the actual base raw material. In this case, it's a marine organism. And then we're bringing in materials such as enzymes from other manufacturers as well as standard process aids. So it's, again, that the insight in terms of not only what I have brought in to aid me in my processing, but then even in terms of the what I need to produce and how I need to produce it and have it supplied for making easy business for the ultimate manufacturer who will receive my raw materials or my ingredients directly to consumers, or soups that go to consumers. I've actually uniquely touched on everything from the seed and even beyond that into the development of the germplasm all the way through to something that ultimately gets through to a consumer. So I've seen every single link in the chain and different experiences and touched it in one way, shape, or form. Yeah, I mean, in terms of a business-to-business ingredient manufacturer, I'll kind of lock it within that for right now, just as a framework. We're creating ingredients that if we don't have the ingredients for supply to somebody else, their production line shuts down. So we're somewhat of an interim processor. We receive in certain raw materials, combine them with our own, and create a functional ingredient that goes to a beverage or a food manufacturer. If I don't have the raw material or it doesn't meet my specification, some of these are rather unique materials, like an enzyme. Enzymes are just all slightly different. I can't just grab an enzyme off the shelf. If my supplier can't meet my specifications or my timeliness of shipment, or there's an error in the shipment, some of these enzymes can be another 2, 3, or even 10-week delay, which has a very serious negative impact on not only my production, but then again how it's perceived of whether I am a reliable supplier or not to the food manufacturer.
Would you say that supply chain risk is increasing at this time?
Yes, it is, and it's primarily based on, of course, everybody wants to carry the JIT, and JIT is great for when if you've got a common ingredient, and if I'm buying sugar, great. You know what? For the most part, it's sugar is sugar is sugar, unless you're talking about some very strange liquid sugars. But when you're talking about something that's a very specific enzyme or has a unique function within a food or a beverage matrix, JIT just doesn't cut it. Well, in terms of what we try to do is to source manufacturers for ingredients that will work with us more in that respect of just in terms of I've got a choice of 2 enzyme suppliers at the moment. I'm looking at one and says that they really do what I want them to do, but I'm actually looking at taking a less desirable, less functional enzyme for my process simply because they're willing to warehouse it local for me. They're making it easy to do business with. So I have to look and say I'm willing to take an inefficiency and if you want to call it have more waste materials in my processing simply because I'm mitigating risk by having somebody who will carry an inventory rather than it's coming over from Europe and they want to do it basically I order it and then they'll see about making it and then they'll see about sending it over. Well, it's mainly scheduling. It's again, if I've got a tight schedule or deadline to meet on something, you can only have so many. Let's say if you're manufacturing 5 different products, if you have a hiccup within one and you divert over to one of your other 4, and you can do so easily, that's great. The problem being that, let's say if you hiccup on one, and then you have a hiccup on another one, you're kind of under the gun for manufacturing. Maybe you can get the delay from your customer of 5 weeks. But that means that when the material comes in, suddenly you really have to cram it, the production in a short period of time. That could mean either overtime, which of course increases your costs, or it could mean that if you've got a similar issue with another product, and they both have to be produced at the same time, but you don't have the capacity for it now. So it becomes an issue of where we in response have to produce and keep more inventory than desired to mitigate against the risk of. Yeah, I mean, the issue becomes a matter of the ever-changing. There's a push and a pull. On one hand, there's a dumbing down by the U.S. government of some of the regulations behind organic, which is then some consumers are setting, or in this case consumers, and then the manufacturers are setting their own standards for what they term as being organic. So you have almost shadow qualifications out there, and it's trying to source the raw materials behind that. In addition, then it's a matter of that organic as originated from where. You have to be very careful in terms of the I was actually on a project from an ingredient where we analyzed some raw materials from several different countries, all meeting organic standards, whereas one had a cadmium level that was, toxic. It was organic certified, but I would never consume the product in my wildest dreams. So you have to be careful of and really have a good communication with your customer of when they say organic, it's not just a catchphrase. What do you mean? Risk management is, at least the key is, and you'd mentioned a little bit earlier, is communication. Communication is just going to be paramount in terms of if you understand the problems at hand and having an open dialogue with both your suppliers as well as your customers, how much leeway when they say they need it on 2 weeks, how much leeway do they have when somebody tells you they can supply you within 10 days? Well, 10 days plus or minus what? Let's be honest about it. An open communication, change of manufacturing methods, so that people understand that when you make a small change specification on an inbound material, it can have dramatic impact, negative impact, not only in terms of your own process, but then ultimately your customers. But by trying to keep these open dialogues and more frequent meetings, and then it's just a matter of finding a supplier of like mind who's willing to work with you in these respects rather than haphazardly, from their own convenience, change the specification, change delivery time, cut you short on supply because they just haven't been able to produce, but not communicate with you. You have to basically work diligently to weed those groups out and never let them back in your door.